Yeah, it's a Game Boy. I know you're used to me doing content on making lamps from rusty old car parts, tool reviews and political based content, but it's time for something a bit more nerdy. Remember your old Game Boy Color? Yeah, they were great fun back in the 90s, but calling it colour was a bit of a stretch. I mean, the screen's darker than my ex-wife's sense of humour. But what if I told you we could take that dark screen, speaker that sounds like a pensioner whispering into a pillow, and crusty worn out old chassis and turn it into a sleek, vibrant, RGB lit portable gaming 8-bit powerhouse with a speaker to rival the Coachella sound system? Alright, maybe not Coachella, but the sound will improve. This Game Boy Color was made back in 1998 in,
let's say, China.
and it ain't in bad condition for a portable gaming console that's older than the Johnny in my wallet. So if I'm really going to drag this thing into the 21st century, it's going to need some upgrades. Now don't get me wrong, we're not about to turn this paltry pixelated Playboy into a portable PlayStation 5, it's still a fucking Game Boy. But before the 90s comes looking for its gaming icons, here's what I'm gonna do.
Step 1.
The capacitors. Right now this Game Boy sounds like it's being played from inside of a fridge, so these little vintage lightning tubes are probably knackered. Dead caps means crap audio, so we'll swap them out.
Step 2.
The speaker. Nintendo generously fitted this thing with a whole 1/4 of a watt speaker that gently whispers barely audible sweet nothings into your ear. We're going to rip it out and slap in a 1 watt subwoofer so you can really feel those 4 channels of extremely basic beeps ripping through your chest.
Step 3.
The screen. The original TFT display is basically an LCD based insult. Unless you're sat under a 5000 lumen floodlight you can barely see a thing. So we're binning it and upgrading to a modern LED colour screen with an actual backlight.
Oh, technology!
And finally, to really sprinkle some glitter on this retro turd,
Step 4.
we'll ditch the old plastic shell and drop everything into a sleek black case so you can be the envy of all your man-child mates down at the Retro Gaming Club. If you also like ruining your vintage electronics and you want to get your grubby little hands on some of that toot, hit up the links in the word box below so you can mod your very own Game Boy. Or don't, whatever. First up, to get into this vintage bad boy you'll need a tri-point screwdriver. Yeah, tri-point. Nintendo used a set of screws so rare that even the most well-stocked electronics store will be saying,
Nah mate, 3-week lead time for that driver.
when you show them the back of your Game Boy. Otherwise, zero size are the ones you need. And to get into the guts of this beast, just unscrew the 4 tri-points on the back ear and the 2 under the battery cover. If the sound on your Game Boy is also as dead as your ex-wife's empathy, once you're in, you'll need to replace these 3 capacitors associated with a sound chip. Now you could spend ages trying to convince the capacitors to exit the board with a soldering iron and a pair of your ex-wife's nipple hair tweezers. Or you could just get a massive pair of side cutters and circumcise the shit out of them, which makes desoldering the pins underneath much easier. Once it's off and cleaned up, feebly attempt to retin the pads and solder the new capacitor into place with all the grace of a well-trained but slightly inebriated monkey. Now I wouldn't recommend it, but you could leave some random blobs of solder on the board for authenticity. Repeat these steps again for the other 2 capacitors on the board and try not to rip the pins off the pads. Next up, we're going to continue working on the Game Boy's whopping 4-hole bit sound system by swapping out the speaker. So use the world's smallest screwdriver to remove the Phillips head screws holding down the motherboard. Then flip the Game Boy around and take out the ribbon cable connecting the screen to the board. If you've got an authentic 90s Game Boy, you should find a bit of old crust lurking somewhere within the confines of the case. Now desolder the positive and negative speaker cables and wick off any remaining solder to reveal the pinholes of the board. Don't be too rough with your bone crunching sausage fingers here, we're modding a Game Boy, not performing medieval dentistry. Get the new speaker, pump the holes with the cables and panic solder until it sticks. Boom, soul pumping bass completed. Since the Game Boy's intestines are now spread across the table like a crime scene at an electronics store, might as well give her a bit of a clean and a wipe down with some isopropyl alcohol. The old boy deserves at least some dignity before the next round of butchery. The replacement IPS screen is almost 25% larger than the original, so if you don't buy a new case ready made to accept the larger screen, you'll have to hack away at the original with a Dremel and a couple of prayers. Now we all know that will end in destroyed plastic and tears, so with this IPS ready case, I just have to simply peel the cover off the adhesive strips and slide her gently into the inviting void. The ribbon cable on the new screen needs 3 wires connected to the motherboard: start, select and power. So tin the points on the ribbon cable and aggressively encourage some wires to attach. Now's a good time to throw in all the buttons. I'm cleaning up and reusing my old Game Boy buttons because I'm environmentally friendly. And cheap, very cheap. I'm sure there's better places to connect these wires, but I chose these 2 vias which are linked to the start and select buttons. I think it's start to the top and select to the bottom, but I'd double check that with a continuity tester to the button pads if I were you. I attempted to tin these 2 tiny vias before connecting the wires, but that didn't really work particularly well. So I tinned the wires as well, and somehow got them to stay there. Using my new Tomlov digital microscope, linked to the review in the description, I inspected the solder joints. Yeah, as I suspected, this one's bridged to another track. That will probably result in all sorts of Mario mayhem. So let's see if I can do a little better on the second take. Well, it's not exactly a feat of engineering perfection, but hey, it works. Now stick the protective film over the back of the screen and stick the motherboard into the case, ensuring the ribbon cable is sitting correctly in the motherboard's receptacle. Connect the wire from the ribbon cable power terminal to the power switch. Hopefully yours won't look like a blind Parkinson's patient went at it with a soldering iron and too much confidence. Stick the new speaker into the new case, throw all the screws back in, then plaster the new stickers onto the case for authenticity and to really finish her off, and lob a few AA batteries at her. Congrats, you just turned your Game Boy into a game man, or if it's non-binary, a game they. Before we test it out, if you want to actually enjoy riding the nostalgia train, the links in the word box below will get you everything you need to tear down and probably break your very own Game Man. Good luck with that if you want to give it a go. We'll look at the different functions of the screen and play a few retro games in beautiful backlit 15-bit LED colour. Well, first off, you can actually hear the game, which is a good start, and a vast improvement. While I did forget how bad the monotone beeps of the Game Boy sound system actually are, hearing that Mario music does bring back memories. Now, the camera I'm filming on really doesn't do the colours on this IPS screen justice. It looks absolutely banging. Let's try out the old favourite Bionic Commando. The colours are vibrant as and with the screen brighter than the chemical reaction in a fission reactor, you might actually be able to play this thing in a dark room now. Not only does this game really put the colours of the IPS screen to the test, but a catchy theme tune is making great use of a whopping 1-watt speaker and the new capacitors. Okay, now time for a bit of penis-shaped protagonist, Earthworm Jim. Colours are really popping with this game, and I'm getting some really deep, soul-shaking beeps from the speaker. I really just can't get over how damn good this screen looks. The upgrades have really brought this cross machine into the new millennium. Alright, enough pissing around, let's have a look at the menu options on the screen, which you can access by holding down both the start and the select buttons. And the first setting is the screen brightness. You cycle through the menu settings by holding down the select button. You adjust the highlighted setting by single pushing the select button. N takes you to the next menu page, which has the option of adjusting the X and Y position of the screen. The LGC option allows you to change the Game Boy Color logo to preset colours. You can change the logo to custom colours by adjusting the RGB options. FRM allows frame blending to make transparency effects a bit more realistic. DSP cycles through different pixel display modes for a more retro vibe if the IPS screen is just a bit too damn modern for you. Smash the like and subscribe if you enjoyed that retro ride. Don't even know if that actually does anything anymore. And I'll see you next time on